there's something I'm trying to like figure out here, just because the world is about to enter a recession, but depending on the country, it's gonna be different. It may be mild for America compared to the rest of the world, because there's a lot of, I mean, I know a lot about geopolitics compared to the average person, partly because of my job in the Air Force when I was in the Air Force, but also there's just certain people I follow. I think there's a great fear about like a famine. It's not going to affect most first world countries, but it's going to affect like a lot of second, third world countries. And there's certain stuff where I think a lot of these, I know people enter the sports card market to kind of escape the real world in a sense, but like some of that stuff does affect us. Like I remember I was like buying Mbappe cards from a guy in Russia. I can't do that anymore. Um, and stuff like that where you're gonna have issue with famine starting in fall, and this is gonna be a couple year thing, and obviously food is going up, but it's gonna continue to go up. For us, it's gonna be a little unrest, but like it's gonna affect other countries worse, especially the Middle East. I'm not sure how much that would affect, let's say, the World Cup in Qatar starting in end of November or whatever. But then a lot of that stuff, there's a domino effect where that leads to, war, people get displaced, migration, more pandemics because, people, there's a famine, they're going to try to eat whatever they can. Some stuff is not best to eat. You kind of have this whole thing with the whole world overprinting money. It's not just United States. China's been overprinting money. I mean, Sri Lanka's starting to have their whole issue economically. Other countries like Pakistan looks like they're in trouble. You know, you kind of have that. You have potential for, like I said, war, but United States and China, I don't think it's going to be direct, but I think it's probably going to be like a proxy kind of a thing where we like give Taiwan weapons and support. And is it them trying to hold off China for as long as possible and try to like bleed their economy in a sense. And then, yeah, I think that's just some of the things. I mean, you still have threats from that because I listen to other people like Ray Dalio, and he's been talking about some things. Peter Zion, who's into geopolitics. You have this whole energy issue where the United States will probably be fine. It's just one of those things I'm trying to wrap my head around because the United States is going to have some challenges, but overall, I think the United States is going to get through everything. And most of North America will be fine. There's a political aspect that may be scary where division is really bad. Yeah, and I just from 2016 to now, I've read so many books on guys, people, just different people in different fields from economics, history, geopolitics, coming to similar conclusions, even though they do different work, about internal conflicts and also external conflicts. And I don't see. I'm trying to figure out like what the sports card market is really going to look like because it's hard for me to imagine like most of the rest of the world is going to hell, but everybody's making money in sport. Obviously, not everybody, but people making money in sports cards. And it's the same thing with crypto. If you talk to crypto people, they're super bullish about crypto. Like stock people, they're super bullish about stocks. Real estate, same thing. There's the fine art market now where you can invest in art with Masterworks, all collectibles, comic books, Funko Pops now, video games, VHS. If you put in some plastic and put a grade on it, the is worth money now.
Yeah, I mean, you make a lot of good points, and it's hard to begin here. But so during tough times, people, even if they don't have a lot of money, whatever money they have, just for a collectible point or just to collect, people will still go into sports cards or Funko Pops or etc. because they want to divert their mind. Suppose they're going through a challenging situation and maybe less money is coming in for whatever reason, their hours are cut. They still will have some money just to spend. So from that aspect, people will continue to collect, and I'm going to collect even if I'm in a financially difficult position, and I think most people would. But now, from an investment or speculative point of view, you've made a very good point about Sri Lanka, and I follow some other people that are following economics and geopolitical issues as well. And when an economy overheats, so they go from inflation, and what I've read is that it goes to deflation eventually. And deflation, as you know, and everyone watching, prices go down. So right now, like you mentioned, we are in a mild recession. I don't think it's as bad as 2008 or 2020 because 2008, I remember people wouldn't go to the malls. People are out and about. 2020, I remember colleagues getting laid off. I don't see that right now. People are getting raises. People are getting promoted right now where I'm at. So I don't see that. But in terms of what makes me a bit worried is, okay, we have inflation now. And we have these cycles, okay, inflation to deflation. You had this in the 1980s, right? Volcker jacked up rates. You had inflation, then you had prices coming down. You had a hard recession. We're not at the hard recession yet, but maybe a couple years from now, if we go from that process of inflation to deflation, then I believe in terms of the collectibles market, you're going to have a lot of opportunities. And I think a lot of people, like we've seen so many people leave the hobby right now. Just imagine if we go through that same cycle. You know, some people in Europe, sophisticated people saying, oh, we're going to have this reset. I don't know if you've heard of that, but yeah, okay. They're talking about this reset. So they're talking about timeline 2023, 2025, whatever it is. If that happens, prices come down, people lose their jobs. And that's the time, in my opinion, that I want to be aggressive if I have the financial means. And if anyone has the financial means, you want to buy when there's absolute fear. And I bought when the stock market was tanking like crazy. I just decided to buy the Star 84 or 85 Gatorade card because look, all the guys that were saying, hey, be positive, I'm not knocking on them. And they were all of a sudden sounding a little bit like me. I'm like, whoa. Hold up a sec. Hold up. If you're saying something like me, I better be buying something at least, even though I understand the value of it may go down, but I want to buy when there's fear. So
yeah, I kind of look at it. I more I would say in the last few years start looking at things at more like cycles. I guess there's some elements to the 1970s with the whole inflation issue, but I think there's some geopolitical things where I think is more like the 1930s. And where we talk about the United States, and I think United States kind of is still in control of the sports card market and really collectibles market in general. There are a lot of other cultures that do collect things, but not to the extent like Americans do and Canadians. So I think that's like a really good thing. I actually maybe I should switch here. So like one other thing that goes through my mind is demographics actually. So North America's demographics is actually pretty good, but the rest of the world isn't looking so good. And eventually, depending, especially if you're trying to hold stuff for long term, if you're trying to hold for 10 years or something or longer, I think demographics really play a role just because as societies get more established in a sense, people have less kids and more educated overall. So people talk, this is another thing Gary Vee was talking about, like China and the China market really hasn't even gotten whole yet. I know because I bought a lot of stuff from China, from cards from China. All of them are sold because I was they didn't look fake, but like there's a lot of fakes from China. So, but they don't have that many 25-year-olds, just because of the one child policy or whatever. And the way things are going for the future, I don't know like how well they're gonna really by like 2050, and it's still a long time from now. But like we say, once there's a next big sports car cycle where people talk about, I don't know, every 30 to 25 to 40 years or something like that, where I guess you have this craziness that we had recently in a sense. If people are trying to hold to then, things may look a lot different, and there may actually maybe less people on the planet. Um, Maybe there'd be more wealth, but like I guess there's a lot of factors to think about when you're holding yourself long term because sports can be different, demographics could be different. Um, Europe, for example, people, hoping, a lot of Europeans get into it, but like there are a lot of Europeans who, most of their countries don't really have that many kids. And if they do have a kid, they have one, right? And you have two people having one kid. How math works is going to be a lot less people.
Yeah, you make an interesting point. I forget what author I was reading. I referenced him in one of my videos. And he said that for the GDP of the United States to go up, you basically, obviously, if you lose people in your population over time, your GDP is eventually going to go down, right? And I'm looking at the baby boomers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of baby boomers are going to be they may be collecting Social Security right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, not to be a downer, but maybe in the next 10 to 15 years, a lot of them are going to be out of the workforce. And unfortunately, they're going to be passing away.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just thinking, if you just want to look at a collectibles point of view, a lot of these guys, you could say boomers that age, they invest and speculate a lot in baseball cards, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
you were talking about this earlier on in one of your interviews. So if you have people that, pass away, and if you're looking at the US demographics, in the short run, okay, you're going to have less people, that means GDP growth is not going to be strong. So, and you talked about earlier on the 1930s, you think it could be similar to that. And the 1930s, I was talking about deflation. That's what the United States experienced.
Mm-hmm.
So, what if you're in an environment where prices either go down like deflation or they just stay stagnant?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of collectibles, it's not going to be like it was in 2020, where a lot of people are just assuming, and you have all this content creators. So I just wondered if you go through a system or a time where you have a somewhat of a banking crisis, just a transition, maybe you're talking about China earlier. Maybe down the road, the United States transitions their world reserve currency to China, or maybe it's a group of nations with the United Nations, the SDR they're talking about, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I still think that everything's going to move over to China. I think they're changing their one policy to 3 kids, I believe, but I have to read into that more. But I think there will be a transition. Right now, it's fine, but you go through a tough environment of deflation. A lot of people that you see right now on YouTube, they're going to be out of the sports card game. That's just my feeling, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.